And Topher was great. I mean, we're all kind of stuck in this little kind of confined space for quite some time. I think they were probably a little bit annoyed with me. I was definitely into the character. And of course, Mel being one of, my favorite directors, he's made some of the best movies that I've seen in quite a long time. So it was amazing getting to work with him in that capacity. Yeah, look, we shot the whole movie in 22 days. I'd never done that before. And we literally shoot, I don't know, 15 pages sometimes in a day, depending. And we just kind of go around with the camera because you can only do so much. There's a couple opportunities where we had multiple cameras, but it was interesting. We got to know each other well quickly. How? Any way possible. Why? Because he's a crazy person. He's an absolute crazy person. And, it was a really fun character to play, and hopefully audiences will enjoy it and really take pleasure in his demise. He has so much experience both as an actor and as a filmmaker, and so you kind of come in with your ideas, and certainly had my take on the character, but I was also willing to do and try anything that he asked, and really wanted to kind of be there to service his unique vision. Fucking crazy, man. Fucking crazy. Really cool. Think they should expect the unexpected. You're going to go to a movie where you're going to scream and laugh and probably cover your eyes and yell at the screen, and you're going to cheer when my character gets what's coming to him. It's a wild ride that is only meant to be seen in the theater. I think seeing it with total strangers, and there's a lot of things that you'll either can't look away from or can't look at.
Well, I loved the script. It was such a, it was one of those scripts that was difficult to put down. It really jumped off the page. And I loved that it was this very contained three-hander, really, between these three characters. And it's something that was very different for me, a genre that was quite different to anything else I'd ever done before. I had a federal marshal on hand to speak to, and he gave me a great insight into what it is to be a marshal, and so I got a great kind of background on what her life would have been like and what her kind of training would have been like. But I actually drew, rather than from a real person, a real marshal, I actually drew more inspiration from characters that I'd seen, actors who had played characters in law enforcement, and actually I'd been watching Happy Valley, so Sarah Lancashire's incredible performance as Catherine Coward was a big inspiration for me. So I was, channeling as much of Sarah as I could. Madeleine really has heart. There's a past there, and she's trying to rectify her mistakes that she made. The previous operation that she was assigned to went very badly wrong, and she lost a witness, in her hands, under her care. So this assignment for her is really important. She's almost trying to, prove herself again, that she is capable and reliable in the field. And I loved when I read it that there was this past, this kind of bubbling, there's always a sort of energy underneath that, that there's an emotion behind it, and there's a great sadness there for losing a witness. He's got this amazing balance of he's got such, as an audience, you really warm to him, but he's very funny. It's such a kind of great balance that he manages to kind of find with this role. I think you laugh at him, but you also kind of feel like you want to cry for him, and in those moments that are really serious. Very, very quickly, we realised this is going to be quite intense and tight, and I guess not, you know, having that sort of restriction is interesting, because you do, you know, so much of filming depends on, you're contained depending on the shot, but for this you're really contained throughout. So it was just sort of something to get used to at the beginning, that, you know, you can't really move around much. I'm pretty much stationary, either in the passenger seat or the pilot seat. So in some ways, when I got up and was able to sort of fight with Mark, it was nice to actually, you know, get moving a bit. But in a way, you're constantly on the move. I mean, that's how I felt as Madeleine, because she's always trying to, you know, tee up her next move, and she's constantly thinking ahead. So you're active, you know, despite the fact that you can't really, you know, move around that much. We've got this incredible stunt trainer, Dave Barrett, who, you know, took me through the basics to start with, and then really we just started going through, you know, that first initial fight between Madeleine and Daryl. But we always, from the start, we always kind of talked about the idea of it being very messy, because it's in such a tight space. You know, there's very little movement, you know, that you can do. You can't run away or, you know, back off from the person. It's so tight. So we wanted it to feel really authentic, really, you know, not too choreographed, just, you know, gritty and messy. And I think they really achieved that. But I can't remember the last time you played a character this nasty. So it was, you know, amazing to see that transformation. You know, it is a really nasty character. Like, there are no qualities about him that you know, can understand why he's the way he is, or it's just a very and quite broad performance as well. I feel like it's, you know, he goes very far with it. But there's a playfulness to the way he's doing it as well. It's like a really unnerving playfulness that I think makes it even more scary. He's so unpredictable, you just don't know what he's going to do, to both Madeleine and Winston.
What a brilliant concept for a film, to be stuck in a very small claustrophobic space, but to be able to cut to such cinematic, amazing landscapes. It's like a really singular idea, and I'm just glad I got to be in. You can only do it first once, you know? I thought about it when I read the script. I thought, this film's great, and it's gonna hurt. And it did. It's, you know, you're really, just being in a small space like that, action takes on a different meaning, because there's so many ways you can get hurt immediately. And then on top of it, I knew I was gonna be wearing chains the whole movie. But it forces a different kind of performance out of you, and it's less acting than normal, because you're really in that situation, and it's a real-time movie, so you're in it. I didn't really understand it until I saw it, but not only are these 8 plates, which is a perfect, you know, 360 degrees around us, but also because they put the cameras on their side, there's a lot of latitude up and down, and then we're all up on this gimbal that's 30 feet up, and the plane can dive, and it can, you know, totally ascend. And the closest thing I can describe it to feeling like is when I went to, like, those amusement parks, you know, like Disneyland or Universal Studios when I was a kid, and they said, we're gonna put you in the movies. I always thought doing movies would feel like that, and they don't. Most of the time they feel really fake. Here, like I said, very little acting required. When we're diving, it really felt like we were diving and we were gonna die. Like, and you can just, you know, it's a documentary. Whatever reaction you get is the real reaction. I started the film thinking I was the bad guy, and I've played bad guys like this. And then I realized I wasn't the bad guy. And then I thought someone else is the bad guy, and I thought someone else is the bad guy. I mean, there are only 3 people in the movie, but then it just kept rotating. It's like a triangle that goes like just keeps going. It keeps changing every 10 pages, and there's movies that you want to finish, and the movies that you have to finish know what the answer is, and this is one of them. The thing that made it work for me was that you're all driving at the same goal, which is kind of amazing concept. It's the first time someone's thought of a concept like this. And then the other actors, Mark and Michelle, are so dedicated, and we all wanted to make the same movie and wanted to put the same amount of effort into it. And everyone's going at 100% all the time, and I think we were feeding off each other's energy. And there are times you go, I mean, this is like an action movie on top of a thriller, on top of just a contained space you have to be in. But I'd look over Michelle, or I'd see what Mark was doing, and I'd go like, no, I gotta get it up, because they're doing such a great job. She is the coolest person that you could hope to be trapped in a confined space like this for a month and a half. She's so, first of all, she's such a great actor, but then on top of that, she's such a generous person, and we shared so much time together, and so much of our performance was together, and it just helps when someone's that cool and prepared, and like I said, you want to be good at it, but on top of that, you also want him to be great to hang out with. He's such a pro. It's just not a mistake that he's the, big deal that he is. And he gave like 110%. It was impressive watching him, especially some of these scenes where he was really, when it's peeled back to see who his real character is, he's not scared of anything. Nor should he be. But he really went for it. There were a couple times, Mark's got such an amazing gift, because he's both such a good actor and so funny. And he's able to weave those two things together. So there were times where he was like yelling at me, and I was personally scared, but also like my character's supposed to be scared. But then I almost started laughing, because what he's doing is so fun. And I love this quality he's had his whole career, but he's able to put like kind of different tones in his work. Some people, it's like, they're all scary or they're all comedic, and he kind of is able to do everything at once, and it was so great. It's like being in class, being able to sit there and watch him do his thing. He's an amazing director who understands actors. I think a lot of directors think they understand actors, or kind of promise they will, and then when they're shooting it on the day, there's a lot to. It's a tough job. That's why I don't direct. But Mel is one of those actors who has been on a lot more sets than most directors have, and is a great director, and knows when to drill down and help you get the best out of yourself. And I felt so safe to try some stuff I'd never felt that safe to try before, and I have such a respect for his craft. What's interesting about seeing this film on the big screen is kind of two things that sound like the opposite. One is, it's amazing to have a contained thriller that's in this little space, but then has these incredible panoramic views, and we've been looking at them because we've been looking out the window, but then to be able to see the plane and these beautiful environments, that's amazing to see on a big screen. But then also the opposite of that, which is the performances that I've been watching of my fellow actors up close. Look, I've seen movies on a cell phone like everyone else has, but there's something about seeing the faces be a certain size and the kind of performances that Mel's getting out of us. It's like, I think if you want to feel like you climbed into that space with us, the big screen is the place to do that.
I read it and it was fast and kept me guessing, and I thought, I got some laughs out of it, and it was at once terrifying and kind of absurd. at the same time, and had a kind of a weird mixture of elements that I kind of found kind of charming. One has to realize the potential of, you know, what you read, and find more in it if you possibly can, which I think we did. And I did that with, we sat with a writer and we went through the script a couple of times and mined a few more nuggets of gold out of it. And then, of course, then when the performers come along, like Mark and Michelle and Topher, they bring their own bag of tricks. So it's really nice to work with other people who have who realize the potential of their own artistic endeavor and sort of bring the game, you know. It had its challenges, but was big enough to be able to get around. And, you know, full kudos to the camera guys and the crew and the lighting and everybody, and the set designer, because he was key. David Meyer, he understood, and I was fully on board with him, that you had to have a plane that could be modular, that you had to be able to yank the windows out and take the nose off, and, you know, you had to be able to pull it apart and put it back together again, so you could actually shoot. So the practicality of the set and the engineering involved in a very short amount of time by the production designer is nothing short of miraculous. He's real good at what he does. I worked with Johnny on a little small budget film up in Canada one time, and I noted at the time that they had no budget and no time, but it looked amazing. And I thought, I think I need to work with that guy, and I was absolutely right, because this film looks amazing, and we shot it in 22 days with other technical advances at our disposal that neither of us had ever used before. But now we're kind of, you know, we went to school on this one. Anytime you're in an aircraft, it's going to be claustrophobic. And I think, you know, we've played into probably almost everyone's dis-ease, or if I can call it that, or fear of flying, altitude, you know, fear of falling, fear of crashing, all those things. And so we had a very small space. The beauty of it was that it takes place over these Alaskan Alps, which are really stunning and really spectacular, and at the same time kind of intimidating and scary. So although it is in a plane, it sort of feels open, and the vistas are spectacular. So it has a big scope, which is what I really liked about the setting. She's very accomplished, and I think from what I've seen of her, she's able to convey a whole lot in a very little. She's extremely subtle in what she's telling you with just the facial expression and stuff. So, you know, I study that kind of stuff, and I knew she was good. So, you know, what's not to dig about that? She expressed interest, she liked the script, and I'm like, okay, let's go. You just have to say action and cut. She just does it, man. She just brings it. Yeah, the only guy that doesn't need to be shackled is him. And he is. And so that's, you know, in a way, the character's kind of archetypal, you know. The accountant who's like, you know, kind of a gentle soul, really, and pretty fearful. And, you know, all of a sudden he's living his own personal id in every way. He's playing some kind of psychopath. He's a psychopath. And at the same time, it's kind of like weirdly amusing. I don't even know how to describe that, but he understood that, and he managed to pull it off and give it just the right turn, you know, the right level of, you know, you almost want to laugh at some of the stuff he says, but it's like so horrible, you know. But, you know, he treaded that, he walked that line really well. But that's his game, you know. I think he's a little more methodical than he would like to admit. And he really gets into it. I think you root for them because intrinsically they're just affable, likable. They have humor, they have flaws, they have things that we all identify with, and they displayed those things. And the script gives them ample opportunity to exhibit those qualities within themselves. So, you know, I think you'll dig them. I dug them. I loved my characters, even the dudes on the radio, you know. Well, we got some very talented people and camera angles, and you know what can be done in this space to approximate, you know, some pretty violent exchanges, and I think we managed to do that in a small space, because action is it's difficult even with lots of space, but when you're trapped in this little place, to get it and get it so it really works, you know. Full kudos and credit go to the you know, the camera team and the stunt team, I think, in being able to, you know, make the space for that to happen. When I read it, what it did to me when I read it, it was I just found it engaging and fast, and I laughed a bunch, and it was like at the same time kind of a shock here and there, and it was like I thought, wow, you know, when I finished quick, and I was entertained by it, and amused by it, and terrified by it, and at the same, you know, and I thought, you know, I just want to share what I see in it with other people.
So the very first time I saw the plane, we went out to a facility in Las Vegas and looked at one, and I took a Sony Venice Rialto, which is about this big, with a Panavision lens on it, and we took it in and we just put it in different places in the airplane to see where we could physically maneuver, where we could put it, if we were going to potentially need to cut away sections of the airplane, and what would that entail. And being on a gimbal, cutting away sections of an airplane when you're 15 feet in the air is not really an option, because you mess with the structural integrity of the airplane. So we realized right away that we would probably have to shoot as is and come up with creative solutions. And we did end up using the Sony Venice Rialto, which, like I said, is only this big, to maneuver inside that airplane. So the only real limitation with the volume is that we had 250 degrees. So we would have to put the plane in different orientations. A lot of times we would go 12 o'clock or 6 o'clock with the orientation on the plane. And working within it, as long as you stay off critical focus on the volume itself and don't get moire, it looks fantastic. Keeping it grounded in reality is really important to both of us. We never wanted you to feel like you weren't actually in that plane with those people. And anything we did that drew you away, we knew was going to be a misstep. So working within the volume, having backgrounds that interacted flawlessly, the reflections, the interactive lighting. I mean, we ran a big 30-foot by 40-foot overhead panel that would sometimes play content for reflections, but a lot of time would be if you're banking and the sun is moving, well then a light source would go across that 30 to 40-foot panel and go over to the other side. Capturing stunt sequences on this was very interesting because, like I said, we're in a little tiny tin can 15 feet up on a gimbal. And so things that on the ground would be difficult become way more magnified. Placing a camera to capture the action when you have no flyaway walls. You have no places to put the camera other than where you can put it inside, or pulling the glass and shooting through where a window would be. So camera placement was really, really important to us, and especially in those action scenes, to get it, to make it feel interesting, to make it feel believable. Getting a call from Mel Gibson to do a movie was an incredible honor in itself. You know, the man has done 5 movies previous to this, nominated for 2 Academy Awards, and he won 1. So just to get a call, to have him ask me to be his next DP when there's only 5 other DPs on the planet who have worked with him, it was probably the biggest compliment I've ever received in my career. And working with him on set was no different. It was like the coolest film school you could ever go to. He's a very emotional director. He's an actor's director, and just watching him and the nuance and the things that he wanted, and then looking at the spin that he would put on things that other people wouldn't. You know, I looked at him one day and I said, you know, this movie in somebody else's hands is a pretty straightforward thriller, but watching the little flourishes and the little places you take it makes it something extraordinary.
It's a learning curve for all of us, and it's been a great learning curve. It would have been interesting, I guess, to do a budget, old style volume studio, and to see what the difference would have been. But I don't know how you would have actually shot that film. It most probably would have taken you the 12 or 13 weeks to shoot it traditionally. And, you know, we knocked it out in 5 weeks. And we've been together now almost 43 years. And obviously there's a lot of shorthand now. And, you know, when Mel approaches a script to direct, I always feel that he directs a film from the inside and not looking in. He puts you amongst the action, he gets you, the camera and the actors, he's there right inside, and he's sort of amongst it all looking out rather than just standing back and looking in. He's always looking for ideas. He's very collaborative on the set, and particularly with the DP. But anyone that's got an opinion, he'll listen to. As he says, he steals from the best. Mark has been very collaborative in terms of his ideas that he has brought to it. And, he's pitched them to Mel, and between the two of them, they've cooked up some great ideas. And you'll have to go see the film to see what they are, but it's worked. And yeah, it's all part of the collaborative process.